What up, gang? Kevin here, Life22, and I know it's been a while since we've done a live stream, and I know all of you are tickled pink, going nuts in your undies over the fact that I am live streaming right now. It is a Friday night, and we are drinking White Claws, so if that tells you anything about my, what do they call it, threatening masculinity? Tells you I don't give a crap. So, today we're doing an episode of News Over Beers. It's been a hot minute since we've done News Over Beers, and I wanted to discuss our favorite topic, the Board of Education meetings. So, hooray! High CPU usage. So here's hoping we don't drop no frames. Click, click, boom. All right. So. We'll try to make this brief. I'll try not to go on too many tangents, but you never know with Kefbo. And processor speeds at... How is it high CPU usage? We're... 90%. There we go. Oh, back down to 50. We're good. So, this is the board meeting from April 19th. This was... not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday prior. Sorry, it takes me a hot minute. We be working, you know. So, a good 14-minute wait here. I'm just going to blow through the meeting. They do a call to order of the meeting, 14 minutes and 45 seconds in. They do a budget presentation at 18 minutes and 15 seconds in. They do a DEI update at 32 minutes in. And immediately after, at 33 minutes and 45 seconds in, we get to the juice. The juice. The stuff you all love.
So
Let's see here. 33.
can tell you some of the policies and things that
as to what the function.
Oh.
Danny's put 10 times.
So public comment.
for sure.
We've been over these numbers, definitely.
Yes.
Worked out.
Thank you. Brief one because we
Sign up ahead of time.
any questions.
Thank you for the update.
Welcome.
All right, at this time, we come to the public comment portion of our agenda. So we didn't have anyone sign up ahead of time, but I'm guessing there's probably some people that want to say a few things. So I'm just going to go over the rules, and when we've got 15 minutes allotted for this. So
Okay, can I do a point of order there? And I bring this up because
Okay, so if you don't know who that is board candidate Tim Sherlock interjecting. And I agree with him on this point. You need consistency in a board, and he's going to get into this real quick. But Robert's Rules of Order, I don't believe you can call point of order if you are not amongst the participants, the members of the meeting, of the board. So just for clarity, you call point of order if somebody's going on a rant or off topic or has gone above their allotted time and is not following Robert's rules. And point of order is a command to the person leading the meeting to stop what they're doing and make a correction to the sails of the ship, if you will. So
the board has made it very clear that they must maintain adherence to their policy and their bylaws. At the last meeting, you arbitrarily chose to ignore those bylaws and change policy again. And yet again, you are here. You are sending a very mixed message as to what the function and accountability of the board is. So I would recommend that before making such a suggestion, that it's something that's then discussed by the board and agreed upon by the board.
thank you for your input. There is room in that policy for the board president.
to give discretion, right? Well, then why would you? Not that me and Tim see eye to eye on a lot of issues, but what happens is you open yourself up to the liability, the subjectiveness that you are not You're not doing what you're, you know what I mean? Like you're giving favoritism to a group of people, and then all of a sudden when you have a topic you don't want to hear about, you don't want to listen to people bitch about, you have an idea of what they're talking about, and you don't give them the credence to be able to go up there and speak their mind, then you draw yourself into an issue. So that, that's what Tim's pointing out. I agree with him on it. And then he's going to walk
make
himself
adjustments
into breaking his ankle.
So that's what I'm suggesting that we do at this point, rather than stifle the comments by the community.
Oh, really? Because you love stifling comments by the community.
Just for the record, it is within his discretion to make that decision.
Are there any objections by the board?
Rabble.
I think you were interrupted in reading our guidelines.
Correct, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the guidelines so that everybody has an understanding of what we're about to do here. The public is invited to speak about items on the agenda. The Board of Education has allotted 15 minutes for public comment. Each individual can speak for 3 minutes. The board can vote to increase the 15-minute maximum if it wishes. Comments that involve personalities are not permitted. Comments about the performance or conduct of individual staff members is not permitted. Comments about specific and/or confidential student-related issues are not permitted. Individuals may request to have an item for discussion placed on the agenda. The request should be submitted in writing to the district clerk, Mrs. Irizarry, no later than noon on the Wednesday prior to each meeting. So at this point, I'm gonna open this up for comments. I want to do this in an orderly fashion. I will not tolerate any attacks on persons on the board or on persons in the room or persons that are students or staff members.
I would like to say though, that I actually do agree with our policy. I do understand that you have the ability to change that, but I really do appreciate people following the policy and signing up so that we know they're going to speak.
Okay.
I agree last
Sorry about that,
meeting,
gang.
I
I had a bunch of little kids making noise. I had to make sure that they were not burning my house down.
Really
And
appreciate that.
they're
So
doing good. They were turning the ceiling fan
I don't
on
want
a
to
little
stifle
bit.
anybody's comments.
Mary Sheena
We do have a
is,
policy and
Mary
I am
Hershey is
about
making her
speaking.
speech.
I would agree with that since we just recently went over the policy. However, our agenda does not come out until
I
Friday.
know,
And to have people
these
sign
are-
up
These are all
to speak
where they're
about
grieving.
items that are on the agenda when
They're airing their grievances, and I don't blame them. I mean, you had discussions. If you didn't 100% agree on a policy, you shouldn't have voted for it. And I'm sure they all, just to try to get move along, get along kind of thing, they all just voted on it. And it's kinda
on Wednesday, when the agenda is not out until Friday, doesn't really make any sense. So I
you can always
do
come
think
to the
that,
next
you know,
meeting. You can always sign up for the next meeting.
Well, I'll just mention this.
but the item might not be on the agenda at the next meeting. So
People do want to get their points across, and I don't disagree with what has been said, but it is well within your authority. My only question and concern are gotchas.
Yeah.
Not you, but we cannot open that up to situations and individuals that are here for more political reasons as opposed to the kids. And we are here for the kids.
And we're here to do the business of the board. There's a lot of business that needs to be done, the hours
Touche.
that are spent.
Okay, so first off, we're here for the kids. It's not political. Bullshit. People have made my child's education political. People are going to say that because this podcast does things that are political, that the entire podcast is political. Like, no. Like, I was in politics, and it's only because politics is downstream of culture. So, essentially, it's cause and effect. You affect my kids, you cause something to happen to my kids' education. Downstream from that is me reacting to it, which you could call politics, or you could call me speaking my opinion. And is my opinion politics? I mean, it's the word politics is almost a gray area. Because essentially it is just this big, like, catch-all term that just is what it is, right? So people are here for politics, not the children, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, they're here for the children. Everybody's here for the children, whether it's for the reasons that I agree with or not. If you're I disagree with a lot of people that are going to be speaking, and I agree with some people that are going to be speaking. So I mean, like, in my head, these people, everyone's there for the children. Some of them are there to take the children to one side of the fence, and others are there to keep them where they are, and some are there to take them to the other side of the fence. And my goal is to keep my kids where my kids stand, and that's why I'm here. But regardless, I mean, this is where it gets down to like the meat and potatoes, and then you get Mary, and she wants the hell out of there. She's like, listen, we're also here to do the business of the board and the hours that we put in. Like, guess what? If you're not gonna put in the hours, if you don't want to put in the hours, you can go, you can leave. Bye bye, see ya. And that's how I look at it. Like, there's hours. Yeah, you got to put them in. I'm sorry, you're here till midnight? You're here till 4 in the morning? Are you there for 4 days straight deliberating? Are you a juror? Guess what? The government relies on jurors, who are people that are plucked, drafted from the community to be on a jury. And those people, you know, by a decent judge can be sent home, or they can stay the night. You can sit there and be like, we sent for sleeping bags and grub. You can eat and you can sleep on the floor. And you're not leaving that room until you've deliberated. And, like, they can do that. Because that is what is asked of you. That is what is mandated of you as, well, in a juror situation, it's mandated of you as, you know, as your duty to civics. That's it. So, anyways.
The business of this board.
All right,
It's
so we,
important to remember that.
yeah, so we have about time for about 5, 6 people, depending on how long each person takes.
Oh boy.
Do we have interest up there? I see Leo's up there. He would like to speak. Why don't we start there then?
Do you want me to come down or just speak from here?
Yes, we're sticking 3 minutes. Could you come down? I think it would help the rest of us and the microphone to pick it up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they don't.
And then I would like name and address too, please.
Even though we all know your name and address, because he just named. Well, they probably don't.
That's right here.
It's down
So
here.
just anywhere up front.
Okay, perfect.
Sound directional.
All right, this is it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. My name's Leo Walters Sahara. I'd prefer to not state my address for safety reasons. So thank you for allowing us the chance to speak. For the record, I do apologize.
Sorry, for safety reasons. I can't. Like, everybody, you then you don't speak. Sorry, this is where the board is fucking the pooch. Like, I'm not gonna name you'd have to name your name and address, or you can't speak. I'm not gonna name my address for safety reasons. Then you don't speak. Sorry, bye-bye. Bye-bye. You're lucky that we're letting you speak today. Sorry, that was my...
I was signed up to speak last time, and I was told that I wasn't able to speak because I wouldn't be here. Then I understood that they called my name, so I just want to apologize. I don't want you to think that I was shirking the commitment there. But I want to say thank you for putting forth this policy. I think it's good and sound doctrine that does, in fact, protect our entire school community in terms of gender expansiveness and inclusivity. I see a sign that says we don't want biological males in our daughters' rooms. That's correct. We don't want males in the women's bathroom. But if I walked into the women's bathroom right now, would I be hassled? Probably. And that's the reality of the situation. Gender non-conforming people and transgender people exist. And as a matter of fact, transgender students are 70% more likely to experience violence than their cisgender components. And if we are worried about men dressing up as women to walk into the women's bathroom, then what we have is a problem with men and not a problem with trans women. I think that this policy is fantastic, and it does allow for the faculty and the staff to have discretion. They can see who is and who is not presenting as a certain gender on a certain way. And I think it does give leverage there for faculty to say, you're just pulling our leg. So I would like to thank you guys for this policy. I've read it over and it does seem very conclusive. And I think it's well overdue in terms of protecting those that are most vulnerable among us. As a statistic, 80% of transgender students have had unwanted sexual advances made at them within school grounds in the past year. And I can give you all the surveys related to those, but I believe that was from the Trevor Project. So when we're talking about protecting our students, we are talking about protecting all students, and that doesn't include trans and non-binary people. This is a public school, this is a public place, and it should be safe and accessible for all. So I think this policy in mind is well drafted.
I gotta stop for a minute. Oh my God. All right, so... I'm sure there's going to be a counter video to this because they love putting out counter videos to my ideology on this. When I was a kid, Pokemon was the fad, and the girls were into Spice Girls, and well, at the ages they're also talking about, they're not just talking about trans kids at like close to 18, right? 17, 18-year-old like high school graduates. They're going down to like 5-year-olds. So just to be clear, and when I was like 5, 7, somewhere in there, Jonathan Taylor Thomas was a thing amongst the girls, right? JTT. Oh man, all the girls were into JTT. In my parents' generation, it would have been like David Cassidy, right? They're fads. They're fads. Pokemon was a fad. Baseball cards were a fad. Skateboarding was a fad. Tony Hawk, pro skater, man. Yeah. Things are fads, and they come and they go. And then all of a sudden, like, somebody having gender dysphoria is a very slim portion of our population. And then you turn around and you look at what's the I in LGBTQI? It's like intersex, which plagues like, is it 0.4? It's not 4%. It's like 0.04% of the it's an extremely low percentage. The problem is that people are identifying as intersex. Like, I can identify as a potato, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm 0.0001% of the population. And if somebody does harm to me, the amount of people that, like the trans potato members of our community, is 100% discriminated against in terms of violence. And it's like, what, but there's one guy. So all you have to do is be mean to one guy. That one guy is suicidal too. Like, oh yeah, because he thinks he's a goddamn potato. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Like, I have friends that are gay, and they're like, listen, I don't want to change my gender. I just accept who I am. And I have a very limited amount of friends that are trans, and they accept themselves, and they're like, listen, I've been gay my whole life, and I want to just, I feel like I should be the opposite sex. And I have respect for some of these people. Like, listen, like, you do what you want. You're over the age of 18. Like, you feel how you feel. Like, I would recommend you go see somebody. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem to me like it's going to help any suicidal thoughts that you're having, right? Like, or anything like that. So it's one of those things. Like, you just, like, and a lot of times I don't bring it up. I might ask questions because I'm curious about certain issues that are going on with it, but for the most part, I stay out of it. And for the most part, this is usually plaguing people that are over the age of 18. And then they say, well, it happened when I was a kid. Well, yeah, like when I was a kid, like, you pretended to do a lot of stuff. Like, I was an astronaut one day, and then, like, you know what I mean? Like, you wear Halloween costumes. You wear Halloween costumes, and you get your Buzz Lightyear another day, and you're Woody, and you're whatever. Like, you throw on a Halloween costume, and that's what it is. Kids like to play dress up. They like to play make believe. You know what I mean? Like, put on my mom's dresses. I put on my dad's cowboy boots. You know what I mean? Like, kids play all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like, whatever. Because you're kids. And at the end of the day, kids grow up to be their biological sex. They grow up to be their biological gender. If they don't like it at 18, then go for it. Go for it. If you want to eat, here's the other thing too with our society, like, you want to go eat garbage food that's going to make you morbidly obese and generate like horrible conditions in your gut that are going to create like tumors and cancerous things, and like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff we don't understand about our evolutionary track on eating food and things like that. And then all of a sudden we ignore it and we say, well, we can do what we want. I can be the opposite sex. I can do this. I can do that. And then people get cancer. They get more suicidal. They get this. They get that. And then they like listen, you're free to make whatever choices you want. You want to be a heroin addict? You want to go shoot up heroin until you OD? You want to like you want to shoot for smoking weed that somebody put fentanyl in because gives you that extra rush. Hey, that's on you. You go fucking do that. Go, you do that. Get away from my kids with it. Don't talk to me about doing it. I ain't smoking no fentanyl. Like, just go. I think there's somebody knocking. Hold on. I'll be out in a minute. Okay, go get it. The kids are preparing for a movie night, and this shouldn't be much longer, but they're just... I need to get your pillow, Dad. I'm like, okay, I'll go get my pillow. Huh. Anyways. No, the people are going to have these problems, and the problem is that you shouldn't be instilling them in kids. Now, all of a sudden, you've got, admittedly, by majority of people in the... in this community, they're like, well, no, listen, like the trans, like you start out and the trans community is like 1% of the population, which actually matches the gender dysphoria population of the community. Then all of a sudden it becomes a like social fad, and all of a sudden like 40% of people are like transgender now. Like, well, okay, well, was it always something that they were worried they could have got beaten up about? Is it something they feel they could be more accepted by? Yeah, maybe, but that's really slim, because the truth of the matter is, when you start getting down to like what people really want, what people are really willing to do, is not always what's socially accepted anyways. So the people that are already doing it, that are already committed to it, and then most people are sheep. So most people always just follow the newest fad. It's more likely, if you follow that same trend with people that had iPhones to people that have iPhones now, when it became more of a fad, and like the trend got bigger, it follows almost that same curve. I bet you could put those curves side by side and they would, it's fad following curves versus like what people are like secretly closeted, like liking to do and wanting to do. And it has to do with the moral fabric breakdown of our society more than anything else. And now kids are all over TikTok, wanting to have all these mental disorders that they don't actually have. There was a whole series on it a couple months ago about like like they were promoting Jesus, what was it, like schizophrenia and stuff like that people wanted to have that. And I think that gets into the fact that the fad nowadays is victim mentality. People want to be a victim. They have to be a victim because it takes away your agency and your ability to have self-reliance. What's up, brother from the 716? What's up, man? To keeping the hobby alive. Anyways, you really got to get down. People are just nuts. They need to get. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But it's like the victim mentality, the fact that people are losing their agency, because if you're a victim, like, you have more power in our society, and everything's always a power struggle. It's always a dominance struggle. If you listen to anything that Jordan Peterson tells you, which, I mean, I would take as gospel, because that is, he breaks it down psychologically. That makes just so much sense. And it's just, it's nuts. But people are turning around, and they're telling us that our like 5 and 6 year olds should be transgender if they feel like women. It's like, no, we should, if they have these problems concurring through their adult life, then maybe you sit down and you talk about it. You sit down and maybe you sit down with it. I don't even know if I trust doctors anymore, because all the doctors are like, just getting on the bandwagon. The same way that the same doctors that are getting on the bandwagon for that are the same ones that are telling you that it's okay that you're more susceptible to COVID, and that you should follow guidelines of the government rather than exercise and eat healthy. Oh, you're morbidly obese? You're more susceptible to COVID? How about you just lose weight? Nope, they won't tell you that, because then you'll just say, flip them the bird and say, I'm going to see another doctor. My insurance company ain't doing business with you. And doctors don't want to walk out. they're feeling like all these other big corporations. They're just gonna go with the times. They're gonna go with the trends. They're gonna go woke, and that's what's happening. And now the school districts are, because they don't want to lose their elections and blah blah blah. It's like, listen, you're being elected. You're being elected to represent what you want, what's best for our kids, and hopefully it's your kids too. But you know, it's funny is like there's very few people on the board that actually have kids in the district, and then there's some of them that never had any kids in the district, and it's I don't know, it's grossly irresponsible for us as parents to allow these boards to accumulate, to start like kowtowing to all these people that are just showing up, just spouting nonsense. So, I promise this wasn't going to take that long, and fuck me running. So.
Gives the faculty and the staff ability to have leverage and to rein people in who are wanting to cause trouble. But I think it's important that we remember that if once again we're worried about biological males being in the women's bathroom, then our conversation is actually about toxic masculinity and the way that our culture treats men, as opposed to the way that trans women are and actually simply want to go to the bathroom.
So let's talk about how toxic, there we go, that was the term I was looking for earlier, toxic masculinity. How about the fact that our government has set up a system in which we use family courts as an instrument to remove fathers from the home and put them in prison, take away their driver's licenses so they can't work, and then we put them in prison because they can't pay child support, because they can't go to work because they don't have a driver's license, because we took it away. So now the dads are in prison. Kids don't know anything other than dad's on vacation or dad's in prison. And guess what? When you're raised in a house without a father, you are less likely, the breakup of the two-parent household, it makes you less likely to succeed in life. There's very few statistics that show anything other than a two-parent household, a mother and a father. Now listen, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but the problem is that like little girls look up to daddy to understand what a good father is, what a good husband should be, what a good parent should be, what they should look for in a man. That's why women marry men that are like their fathers. That's why men marry women that are like their mothers. It's because hopefully you're raised in a household where they have good values, and those values can be instilled in the children. And parents, that's where the term role model comes from. The parents can role model what the kids should look for. And not saying that every parent is perfect. Nobody is perfect. We're human. But the problem is that like seeing your kids, your kids see you, and they see you growing and expanding and doing things to better yourself and better your role as each and every one of these roles that a parent takes on. Should show them that there's room for growth, there's room for all these things, and it isn't just falling down a rabbit hole. And it's also doing what I do. When my kids grow up and they see that dad stood up for what he believed in, it doesn't matter if other people think I'm wrong. It means that I stood up for what I believe in, regardless if people are going to call me Nazi and going to call me toxic masculine and all these other things. Well, guess what? I'm not going into the ladies' room. The problem is there's more cases of women getting raped in the women's room because of transgender women than there are of men bursting into the women's room and raping women. So let's talk about it. Like, oh, is it toxic masculinity, or is it people being wolves in sheep clothing? I mean, I really just see people just skinning a bunch of sheep here and undawnning their wool clothes. So
If we wanted to go to non-binary bathrooms for everyone, that would be amazing, probably cost prohibitive, but I think that this policy is well-founded. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lee.
we'll give you a bucket in the hallway.
Sorry, that was Paul. Sorry. Way to go, Paul. That was close.
Good job.
Man.
To know where you are.
Is there anybody else that wanted to make a comment? Jim?
Then they call out Tim, like they know all the regulars.
Tim Sherlock. I live at 216 Wharton Avenue, temporarily until I move. And I meant no disrespect, please. I hope I didn't come across that way. Again, one of my main factors here in running for the board is making sure that we adhere to the policies, we do what we say, and we say what we mean. I did take a moment after landing this morning, and I did look over the policy. I think it's a very good policy and a very good step in the right direction. Some of the things I would like to see come with it, which I know we're doing on the DEI, is better trainings for our teachers and understanding the terminology, understanding what we mean when we say cisgender, gender nonconforming, understanding what those terms are, and how to interact with our students who are transgender and of these other categories. I'm not going to list all of them off. So I'm hoping that this policy, though it is a step in the right direction, will encompass some of that broader education for our teachers to help keep our students safe and our faculty. Let's be honest, we have faculty here. We're a very diverse faculty in our school district who are part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. So that was mainly all I wanted to speak about, was just looking.
But what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, one teacher has to do that in order for you to be part of the diverse spectrum. Like, is that all there is? Is there 4? Is there 5? Like, I mean, like, listen, it's like when we talk about anything else, we talk about like, hey, we need a more diverse group to run our local administration, or run this or run that, because they have to represent everybody in our community, whether they look like them or they check all the intersectional boxes or all the what have you. The problem is, okay, well then they should represent it by statistical data. So like, if 15% of people are gay in our community or fall into the LGBTQ community, then then only 15% of this board should be made up by LGBTQ people. Or if we're looking for Asian representation or African American representation or Hispanic representation, and they have to follow those percentages. You can't sit there and be like, well, no, we needed 100% board of education that's 50% African American and 40% 40% Asian and 10% like Pacific Islander, and then you're like, what, why? And then where is your 80% of the population that are cisgender white, right? Like that like, you know what I mean? Like that's not then accurately representing anything. That's called reverse discrimination, and you're discriminating against the majority because you are fighting for the minority. Which, listen, I get there's a struggle, right? Like, you always have to fight for what you want. Like, even if you're the majority, you have to fight to keep your ideology in place, and you have to fight as the minority to keep your ideology in place. And it's always just a constant struggle. That life is a struggle. There's all sorts of struggles, but the problem is that you can't have all things happening at all the time. Like, it's not going to happen.
Looking at the policies we do put in place, and again, making sure that they are in line with legislative pieces that we are looking at coming out currently. Thanks.
Thank you.
Toodles.
Rob, I saw your hand go up.
Yep.
Now, Rob DeFazio, I don't think I've ever officially met him. No, I've heard him speak in a couple council meetings when I was there, or committee meetings.
Rob Fazio, 457 Indiana Avenue, Olean. I'm looking at the agenda. Everything has been read except for two, A, B, C, D. Just wondering why these people are put on the agenda. If this is going to be a typical thing that happens every time there's communication to the board, or some kind of explanation for it. I read on here that you can't speak about personnel, things like that. You have district staff members on here with looks like some pretty personal issues with the school district, and it's pretty astonishing and I think inappropriate, and honestly, from what I've seen, typical. Thank you.
I don't know what Rob was talking about there. Maybe he was talking about like retirements and appointments and stuff like that. And then the usual characters and the suspects that he's talking about for public comment.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, my name is Teresa Benchik at 116 South 17th Street here in Olean. I have two female daughters in the school district, and I'm very concerned about the new transgender policy that you guys are trying to implement. I understand that we need to be versatile, that we need to offer all these different options, but who is protecting the children that are not transgender? These kids, I mean, think about the trauma, the people that do not believe in that. We've been teaching them since they were little, do not share bathrooms with boys, do not share bathrooms, we all stick to one thing. And then all of a sudden we're changing, lifestyle and the way things work. And so imagine a little girl in a bathroom, in a locker room, undressed, going to the bathroom, all of a sudden you have a boy come in, okay? They have different parts. So is anybody thinking about protecting the kids that are not transgender? I mean, we are talking about body parts that are different, and that's clear. And there should be no reason that we need to do this. If you guys want to set up a policy like this, make it individual bathrooms. Everybody gets a private bathroom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and then noise suppression from the mics claps, it kicks out all the claps.
Is there anybody else?
Don't mind, I'll stand here. I'm very bad news for getting up and down. My name is Vicki Loesch, 153 North 7th Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last name.
Loeschnig.
Ma'am, the microphone's down here, that's
She's
fine.
saying-
I have a very bad knee.
Okay.
The point is, I stand in agreement with what was just said. As far as transgender, we're considering their rights. What about our rights? If we were raised pseudo-Christian from birth, God says there's man and there's woman. He created it, not us. You all want to abide by transgender. My question is, why not have a bathroom transgender? In other words, the girls are no longer going to have to be worried about seeing parts that they've not.
So, yeah, I mean, and we're going to hear this out of the last speaker, because Vicky here is the last speaker, and then Teresa before him. So, I think there's a lot of concerned parents out there, a lot more that are showing up to these meetings. And we'll get into that when we get to the policy coming up. And it's less, you're going to have more, I feel like, that's why they talk about the silent majority, and now they write that off. You can't say silent majority. It's a trigger word, right? Like it just means that I must be a right-wing radical, right? Or the fact that majority of the population is held silent. Guys like me are going to get crucified because we speak our minds. Because guess what? We represent a population that is actually silent, right? Like when foxes and wolves start running towards running towards your flock, the shepherd stands up and holds his crook to fend off the invading predators, right? And how many of those shepherds turn to say, like, listen, sheep, we need your help here. We're being overrun. Never happens. So what happens is I'll get crucified. The next guy will get crucified, and then they come for the sheep. And because the sheep aren't going to stand up for themselves. But they are a vast majority. And they all have opinions that are similar to the shepherd. And that's why they picked a flock together, and that's why they flock under certain people. And there's a lot of shepherds out there, like myself, that are going to stand for our flock. And you know what? I don't know what to tell you. I can't make other people fight, but I know that I'll fight on other people's behalf. I know that people come to me all the time and say, keep up the good fight. You know why? Because most likely they're not keeping up the good fight. They're keeping up the good fight at home, in their households. As they should. They shouldn't be assaulted from outside. Their kids shouldn't go to school and be told that they have to share restrooms with people of the opposite sex. And for the girls, it's to be, potentially be threatened by males. For the males, they shouldn't be tempted by females. Things like that. Because men and women are biologically different, and they're going to have their different attributes, right? Men are going to be more brawn and more, masculine. Female are going to be more gentle and tempting, and do you know what I mean? Like that's the two different balances of the sphere. You can't say that they are the same. And like the big fight was, both genders are the same. That was the original feminist argument, that both people were the same. Well, you can't make that argument anymore, because otherwise people wouldn't want to be changing their title. I'm this, I'm that, I'm non-binary, I'm translucent, I'm Flounder from the Little Mermaid. Like, you can't just flop between both. It's just they are what they are. There are going to be men that are more feminine than other men. There are going to be women that are more masculine than other women. That they are going to have certain attributes. That's the same as saying that there's going to be women that are more charismatic than other women and men that are more charismatic than other men. It's just, people are all different. The problem is that, what is the terminology that men in nature, symmetry is not a common occurrence, but humans have this need to find symmetry in things where it doesn't exist, and then we draw conclusions. We see spheres where we see spheres. We see prisms where prisms, all other beings don't see them. So we're creating constructs wherever we go, and the issue is that there are certain truths that can't be undefined, and people are trying to manipulate those lines of symmetry how they see it, and we have to try to keep some certain things constant, and that's the biggest issue that we're having with a lot of these things. We got to keep going.
Talked to about or exposed. Maybe there's been trauma at home or some other type of lifestyle that would definitely traumatize them further. Or boys, why not have a separate bathroom for transgender
Okay,
people?
so now we're just finding
that
common ground.
They're not having
Which is
to be
fine. You give them common
exposed
ground, you
to
give them a
things
different one. But I think that this shouldn't start until at least your puberty age. If you're going to make common ground here, and if I have to be put at a negotiating table. So Vicky here finishes up. We go to the safety committee meeting. 49 minutes in, grounds committee meeting minutes. Board reports at 52. Superintendent's report at 52 and 45. 106, we got new business. 107, we got the budget. 108, we got real property tax report card. 108 and 15 seconds, the school calendar. 110:15, the BOCES budget, which I believe it's Janine has a lot to say about that. The BOCES board at 113. 124, personnel. New discussion items. This is where we get into some deep stuff here, folks. Because we got the maintenance plan, fire drills, etc., covering 127 and 15 seconds, all the way up to 130 and 15 seconds, where we get into the social media policy.
Next, we have policy 6460, staff use of computerized resources. This is the third reading. Can I get a motion to adopt this policy?
So moved.
Thank you, Janine.
Second.
Thank you, Jim.
Are we ready to adopt this policy?
Yeah, I saw Kelly.
Any discussion?
Kelly Keller's head.
There's one edit that we neglected to make on page 2 of 5. Under number 3, to omit where it says or community member, and it should say any other district employee or student, and end right there.
Yeah.
We talked about it, we meant to do it, it didn't happen, so that just is the one last thing.
For some reason, I had thought in the last operations meeting that we were still waiting to hear back from some of the bargaining unit.
We did hear back.
Yeah.
And everything's been,
This was one of those changes that we had forgotten to make that change, and that just came through as they've been looking at it over again.
I move the adopt policy as with the amendment just.
Thank you, Jim. Jim? Sure.
And I do thank the bargaining units and everybody who helped us with this. It's a difficult, very difficult policy.
Anyways, so their policy has no meat to it, as they've discussed in previous meetings. So they're all, yay, we're in favor of it, but it has no meat to it. You're not going to fire any teachers for saying what they want online because they have to contend with freedom of speech, which is one of the greatest things ever. And yeah, ta-da! Because that's like telling the teachers they all have to be a secular, right? Or they have to be secular. They can't have their own religion at home and then come into the classroom and not teach anything. So it is what it is. Podcast. Boom. Send. There we go. Done. All right. So, but yeah.
It's better than what we have.
Right, and it's also not the end.
I just was gonna say.
They got a pile of other
it can be
policies
changed.
up until like
All these
1:45. It's all just arbitrary stuff until they get to 2 minutes or 2
And I think
hours
what the
in.
committee,
2 hours in the DEI policy, and then 2 hours and 2 minutes in is the transgender policy.
What, was it maybe 30?
a copy of it, workforce diversity.
That's fine. I was just throwing it up there.
Okay.
And that is a new policy as well. All right.
This is, I don't know if this is an appropriate comment about this, but because not all of our community is going to agree with this policy, I'm not sure that everyone is aware, at least in the high school, that we have essentially gone to gender neutral restrooms anyway. They are all cabinets,
You're
and,
talking about the next.
Are you on the next policy, Council?
right. Oh, yes, yes.
I had-
that's
I
right.
had-
Okay, I'm
So
sorry.
he jumps ahead. So I mean, they really don't even discuss the DEI.
Yeah,
We're going to
I'm just trying to figure out where that was fitting
All
into the DEI.
So the
Okay.
DEI policy, we're gonna take
Yeah,
another,
we're gonna give that another
give that another
run
go.
through,
Yeah,
double
see, they don't even
check,
talk about
But
it.
triple
so far,
check,
that looks pretty good.
Sure.
investigate
And then
it,
2 minutes
got
to
it, okay.
Right.
All right.
2 hours and 2
Perfect.
minutes.
Now we'll move on
Get over
to
Thank you.
policy 7552, gender identity.
Okay, now, Paul.
If you haven't read this policy, I
Oh.
recommend that all of you do it.
What I just said.
So you're referring to policy 56.
My biggest issue with this
Janine.
policy are two words, which is as appropriate. And what the as appropriate falls into the paragraph on when the school includes parents in the conversation about what gender identity the child is going to use at school. And what it does is it gives essentially unfettered discretion.
So I don't like changing norms, but at least Janine is speaking up here, and I hope I got her name right. I'm pretty sure it's Janine. I don't know, but she's got this policy by the balls, and she's like, listen, this policy, and she'll go on here for quite some time, and the board president, who I'm not sure, is it Mike Martell? Mike Martell, I think, is the IT guy. He's the one that's posting the meetings. I'm not sure who the board president is, and I have to do some research on the Board of Education. But she starts talking about, well, like, listen, we need to tell parents what's going on with their children and not negate them from the conversation. And he jumps in and goes, well, what if they're being threatened? What if, like, guess what? Guess what? Until you're 18 years old, if you're under my roof, you're my child. Students don't shed their civil rights at the schoolhouse gate. Tinker versus Des Moines. But the issue is that those rights are exclusively held and harbored over the umbrage of the parents. So like you can't sit there and say, well, they're independent entities and separate from the parents. No, not until they're 18. Not until they're 18 or a judge says that they can be tried as an adult or emancipated. And so everybody else can go fuck themselves if they think they're going to take my children's rights away, but also exclude me, because guess what? You can't remove them from under my roof without any proper authority. And just because that you have this parentis unum or whatever the hell the parentis ex facto or whatever that stupid thing is from the last meeting where they were talking about how, well, in the absence of the parent, we have all the rights to be the parent. And so no, you don't just become the umbrella when I drop them off there. Otherwise, I would have no ability to pick them back up, because who says that you have to give them back, right? Like, screw you. Like, there's no, like, it has to follow some kind of a logical bounds. And that's the problem with our society nowadays, is everybody's getting away from these logical bounds and saying, oh, gender is fluid and blah, 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 and up is down and gravity doesn't exist. And we have you got to have some kind of basic uniform concepts that make sense, that we can all follow, so that we can base these laws on and a foundation on. And all of a sudden you start throwing biology out the goddamn window, we're not going to have any of that. So, the Mets are pitching. Pitch exchange your pitcher. Just making sure that neighbors weren't texting me going, hey, your dog's getting his ass kicked by another dog.
To determine whether to include parents in that conversation, regardless of how young the child is.
I recommend listening to this argument. This argument right here goes from 2 hours and 2 minutes in to 2 hours and 31 minutes and 45 seconds. And they talk about the transgender policy for a good 30 minutes before they go into executive session, and then they immediately adjourn from executive session. So this essentially is over. And the highlights of Janine's comments are pretty much right there. Now he gets some rebuttal from the board president that, well, some kids could be beat at home. Guess what? I'm sorry that kids are beat at home. I'm sorry. That's not my prerogative. That's not what I do at home. But it's not your place to guess this could cause kids to get beat at home. Well, what if we teach kids that they can't eat macaroni and cheese because it's unhealthy? I'm all for pulling macaroni and cheese from the diet of children, but if you were to do that, there is an argument that could be made that certain parents would beat the daylights out of their kids and make them eat macaroni and cheese. So just because you can make the argument that something can happen does not give you the right to say that it will happen with every person, or because it could happen in 1 out of 100,000 students or 1 in 1,000 students, that you now have the right to also intervene. We just made a rule that did this, and this could cause 1 in 1,000 students to be beaten at home. Okay? Well, now we have the authority to assume that you can't just say 1 in 1,000 students are beaten, so we must treat it like all students are beaten over this policy, and we can now have some big grandeur authority over those students. No, you can go fuck yourself. These are my kids. These are your kids. These are other people's kids. These are not the board's kids. The school district does not have those authorities other than a supervisory, highly limited authority under extreme scrutiny. So all these stupid TikTok assholes that I see out there going, my children at school. Guess what? My children at school, we are letting you watch our kids. You are like a babysitter. We can fire you at any moment. You should have the utmost scrutiny put on you. You should be afraid every day if you're going to try to change up the rules in which you were told to teach our kids. I could be fired. Well, good. Guess what? Then find a new fucking career than manipulating my children. Go work at one of those fucking crazy schools. Get away from my kids. Don't talk to my kids. Don't look at my kids. Guess what? Because I'm the umbrage. I am that fucking umbrella that encompasses my kids until they turn 18 years old. So any thought patterns that I decide to fucking will into the brain helmet in which my kids are encumbered by is fair game, because they are my children. And you will not take that away from me. You will not take good values away from my children because you deem that your values are better than mine. Because guess what? Then you can have your own goddamn kids. It always gets back to these Orwellian moves, the Animal Farm. That always fucking sickened me. When the pigs took the puppies away from the mother. That sickened me. And it should sicken every one of you who have children out there. The fact that they can take your kids away from you and then manipulate them and turn them on you. Like, no, they're my kids. They're going to take my values. And then they can do what they, once they turn 18, they can do what they want with them. And hopefully it is to spread the values that we give our children. And they can learn to parlay with other kids in different values. And then they can learn to come to sound agreements with them so that they can get along with everybody and work their way. I say manipulate because everything is manipulation. You manipulate your way through the world. They get a good job. They have good values. They have a good foundation in which to build the house, as is their life. We give them that foundation. You don't fucking come on to our job site. We've tarped it off. We send our kids out for tools and materials. That's what schools are. That's what education is. At school, it's tools and materials to build the foundation, to help us build the foundation that is going to be their life. And when they turn 18, they start framing up walls. They start solidifying the rest of it. And then they have kids of their own. And they build additions, nurseries, things like that. I hope you like my analogies. But if you're going to fuck with me while I'm building my kids' foundation of their life, you guys, you have something else coming. Like other people, you like, they're trying to redefine almost everything to the point that they are able to just like, oh, we want to know what's inside this tent. And if we don't approve of it, we're going to bury this foundation in. We're going to postnatal abort your fucking kids. No, you guys can fuck yourselves. I'm going to fight tooth and nail for my children. And that's why I do these goddamn podcasts. That's why I do them every time I have the opportunity to do it. Because I spend as much time with my kids as I can. And when I don't have time to spend time with my kids, I take it away to come here and fight off the wolves, to protect my flock, to protect other people that think like I do, that don't have the testicular fortitude to stand where I stand. And I don't blame them, but I'm standing here. And I'll get crucified for their beliefs if they share them with me. And that's why we're here, folks. So I recommend that you keep up to date on your own school board meetings. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes, tell you where it's at, show you where you need to watch, give you my own personal take on it, because guess what? This is Kevin, and this is News Over Fucking Beers. And sorry that I got a little more unraveled than I normally... I got less unraveled than I normally do, but it's Life22. And would you expect anything less out of me? Probably not. So we'll catch you guys on the next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, continue to send your hate mail. If you'd like to come on the show, we had somebody comment in the last video about this. If you'd like to come on the show and you'd like to give your opinion, we'd love to have you. We always have an open invitation. And I'm sorry that we haven't made that more clear per the person in the last comment section, but we're here. So don't forget to keep an eye on your kids. Keep an eye on their education. If you're not going to homeschool your kids, you need to keep the government in check, because the government is only good at one thing, which is fucking shit up. They'll be damned if they fuck up my kids. So, like, subscribe. We'll catch you guys on the next time. Life22 signing out.